Justin Herbert's new deal, which technically the final tally comes out as the hugest contract ever. Look into the details, and it's like $133 million guaranteed. And I think the part that is bizarre is what I've seen in some parts of media, but in a lot of social media, which is, well, Pat Mahomes is a discount now. He's the biggest discount in NFL history. Like, okay. The way it works when you sign a long-term contract extension is it protects you, and it's got to, on some level, protect the team. And if you look at the details of the Chiefs deal, which without any question will be redone at some point in time, but if you look at the details of the Chiefs deal, you start to realize that he protected himself by getting just a ton of money, long-term deal, loves the system, loves what he's in, doesn't want to move, all of that stuff. Just all makes sense to him. And they protected themselves by, we're not going to keep going back to the well. We got cost certainty. Once you get to $50 million a year, you should be pretty good. There's also the idiot on social media talking about a contract that he signed 3 years ago. Like, look, that's 3 years ago. That money is in the bank. That money is making more money. Every penny he has that wasn't spent in taxes is making more money. That's why, like, when you win the lottery, they always tell you take all the money up front because that money makes money if you know what you're doing. And when you get to this, this number of commas, 2 commas, you have somebody. You'll usually hire somebody good, and it's not impossible, but it's very, very difficult to blow it all. But the one big takeaway I have is I don't care what Emmanuel Acho says. I don't care what social media idiot says. If you can't see how good Justin Herbert is, the easiest way to point out how good he is, there's not an NFL analyst, anyone associated with the league who covers the league who sit there going like, Herbert, how much? That's too much. Does it mean he's going to win a Super Bowl? It doesn't. Does it mean that the Chargers have achieved as much success as they should? I mean, they're up 27-0 last year in the playoffs and couldn't win the game against the Jaguars. It's embarrassing. It doesn't mean he's perfect, but there isn't a soul who has legitimacy in NFL circles that sits there and goes like, I can't believe they signed Justin Herbert to a big deal. But I've actually heard that, well, he didn't win a playoff game. Okay. Playoff games are hard to win. You know? But not one eye was batted. Not a single one. And we have, where it looked for a while like, man, are we going to have a next generation of quarterbacks? Because the Breeze thing, the Brady thing, the Rivers thing, those lasted, even Aaron Rodgers, they lasted way longer than previous generations, and there wasn't really a next regime. Now there is. Mahomes obviously the best and most accomplished, and then you got Burrow and Herbert, and it feels like, you know, people believe Jalen Hurts. I would only say about Jalen Hurts, obviously he's way better than we thought. The sustainability of how good will he be when new offensive coordinator, but also at some point in time when that contract hits the salary cap, can he carry a team? But we have our next generation, our next regime of all young quarterbacks, and Burrow's the next one to get signed. That'll get done. And as I said, we got a bunch of other guys to sign as well. Let's welcome in Daniel Jeremiah, who was out at Chargers camp earlier today. What's the spirit of Chargers camp, a team you cover with Justin Herbert getting his new deal?
Yeah, it was a lot of energy out there, Doug. I mean, I think, first day of practice around the league, you're going to see a lot of fresh legs and a lot of high hopes. So that's not, totally unusual. But here, I've been out here the first day for several years now, not having a contract situation like it existed in the past with Derwin James and Melvin Gordon, the kind of stuff hanging over the team. There's none of that. It's a pretty healthy group, and you get out there at practice. Herbert had a really nice day. Keenan Allen had a nice one-handed catch, and Mike Williams is back out there running around healthy, and Quentin Johnston, the rookie, made a couple nice plays. So there's a lot of talent. Talent is not ever going to be an issue here. They are a really, really talented group.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we've talked about this, I think more than anybody else, not me and you, just on my show, just like at some point the talent has to be, and you have a quarterback, and it
Yeah.
feels like you have an offensive coordinator who, Kellen Moore, who may fit better here. What's missing? There's got to be something other than if they have injuries. What's the potential downfall of this team?
Well, really the issue over the last few years has been depth. They've had the premier kind of star level blue chip players, but due to injuries at key spots, we've seen Joey Bosa miss a lot of time last year. Rashawn Slater missed the majority of the season. Jamari Sawyer, stepped in and played well, but then you lose his depth along the interior. So they've had really kind of depth along the front. Last year they lost a couple defensive tackles. Shoot, I think they had 4 defensive tackles get hurt last year. So they need to stay healthy, one, of course, but they need to have some quality depth so that when those guys are out, you don't have a tremendous drop-off. You think about Keenan Allen and Mike Williams have missed games over the last few years, so now you have Quentin Johnston and Palmer in there. That's not bad. And then you look at in the defensive front, Tuli Tuipulotu, the rookie second-round pick out of USC, is there as a nice insurance piece for Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. So I think that's the biggest difference. One day out there, we'll see how it goes, but there seems to be up front a deeper group than they've had.
What's your take on the running back market discussion?
Well, I feel bad for them. I get why they're upset. I get why they're frustrated. You could see a guy who's a third receiver that's making more than you are, and you can say, okay, well, my impact's different than his, and I should be getting paid more. But the issue is really what happened with Todd Gurley, what's happened with Zeke Elliott, what happened with Le'Veon Bell. And these running backs, unfortunately have not had tremendous longevity and have not maintained their level of play when you start getting into your, 8, 9, and 10. So that's where, I think it might be a different discussion if those contracts had played out better. We just have very few examples of a lot of money going on a second contract to a running back and ending well.
Yeah. What did Saquon accomplish other than getting $900,000 more? Is this $900,000 more to make sure he shows up for camp and preseason?
Yeah. I guess it's not a huge win on his part. I think he probably should have taken the deal in hindsight, but I think that at least says, hey, it's a respect thing that this is what they owed me, and they went a little bit above and beyond that. So that's, they take that as a sign of some respect. Even though they didn't get the number that they wanted, they can show up and feel like there was some respect shown. So I get it. It's not a ton of money, but it's more than they had to pay him.
Fair enough. Any thoughts that Josh Jacobs misses a game this year? Not from injury.
I'd be shocked.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked. Again, it's just the way that it's set up, leverage wise. It's not worth it to play that game.
No. Plus, it's $10 million. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
What's going to take? People are saying what's it going to take for this to change? What's going to take is for all these guys that are upset right now to go out, play through their contract, play through their franchise tag, and then go play meaningful, really good football. Year 8, 9, 10, and then then maybe that will flip and change. But there just hasn't been a recent history of that working out well.
No, there's not. So, what do you think? The Joe Burrow number is just slightly above that of Herbert?
I was talking to somebody in the league today, and they said the expectation is that the Burrow number, whenever that gets done, will come in a little bit above. Then Mahomes is going to redo his deal, and he'll go over the top of all of them. And then it'll be Josh Allen getting in line again to go back and redo his deal. All these AFC stud quarterbacks, I think we're going to see this over the next, decade, really, is just one just topping another and then trying to get back to the market earlier than you should be because you feel like you're way underpaid at that point in time. So it's going to be interesting to see if a team eventually says, nope, we did this long deal. We got to ride this one out a little bit here. So that's when I think we're in for a little bit of a roller coaster.
I would tend to agree with you. The quarterback, it's I think an outstanding reality series, but I don't know, like you have all these guys hesitant to be in the quarterback season too. They don't make anybody look bad. Even Marcus Mariota, who bailed on the Falcons, like they don't really follow him through the decision. Nothing makes him look bad. Why would these guys not want to do it?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just the camera is attached to a human being, so it's just having human beings in your house during your downtime that you maybe don't want, I guess. So, I mean, that would be the only reason. I don't think it's for any image or how flattering, unflattering you'll be presented. They're always going to present you in a positive light. I think it's just some people, Doug, you just don't want people in your home. So I think it's probably about as simple as that.
Would you do it?
I would do it. I think it's something that I as we get older, I'm 45, I start thinking of things that you kind of leave behind as kind of, I don't want to say the legacy, but that's a cool thing for your grandkids to see and, share with your kids and their kids years in the future. Hey, this is what my life was like during that point in time. It's like having a real life living photo album.
That's a great point. That, and I mean, it just, you get promoted, you never know what opportunity may come from it, and you also make a little scratch when you're doing it. I guess maybe I don't see as much of the downside as other people. I do get the not having people around. Sometimes you just need a breath, but it doesn't feel like it's an intrusive way in which they do it. I could be wrong. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that comes up in the cutting room floor.
You try and tell me like this isn't something where you're calling up, something goes a little too far or you have issues. It's not like you're calling up and talking to a guy who's been producing, reality TV. You're calling Peyton Manning and being like, hey, Peyton, you understand. Like, look, this is where we are in the season. This is going on, and I just can't do this. Peyton Manning's going to understand that.
Totally agree. Completely agree. That's the part. Like, his big thing is he doesn't want to say anything bad about anybody. He doesn't they don't think they get anybody on the reality show if they make him look bad. So why would you want to make people look bad?
Yeah, he's not.
Jimmy Garoppolo, does it work? Are they better in Vegas because Garoppolo's there?
That's a great enigma. I was talking with Money about this out at the Chargers practice today about how I feel like I know Kansas City is going to be really good, obviously. That's not hard to figure that out. I feel like Denver's going to be better with Sean Payton. I feel pretty confident about that. Russell Wilson will play better. I have no clue with the Raiders because I know Jimmy fits the system and has a relationship there with Josh McDaniels. I don't know what his health is going to look like when he gets out there. I don't know how in the world you could rely on him for 17 games. Maybe not rely on him for 12 games. Who knows? But how that thing comes together there, I still think the offensive line has some issues. I still think the secondary has some issues. That team has the broader range. Like, I feel like the Chargers, Doug, they're going to win, worst case scenario, 9 games, best case scenario, like 13 games, 12, 13 games. I feel like the Broncos, you have a range. You feel pretty good about it. Kansas City's going to win. I mean, they fall out of bed and win 12 games. Like, you know what they're going to do. If you told me that the Raiders won 3 games or they won 11 games, I'd say I could make a case for either.
Yeah, it's just such a complete and total unknown. Complete and total 100%. Unknown.
100%.
Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. Speaking of unknown, does the Sam Howell thing work in Washington? I know he was known as a commodity when he was like, hey, maybe this guy's a first-round draft pick and didn't have the last year at Carolina that he hoped to have. But now he's the starter in Washington. They got to win with a new owner. Can he win? Will he win as a starting quarterback?
I think he's completely dependent on the environment. I think he has to have a run game. He's at his best throwing the ball down the field vertically. I think if you want to put him in the shotgun and do, what maybe, Herbert can do and Mahomes and Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence, like, you'll be disappointed. But if you ask him, to get out there, run the football, take some shots down the field, use your legs to create, make some things happen, I think you'll have some success. I think it's going to be entirely dependent on how they play up front and how they run the ball.
Are you a buyer into Aaron Rodgers? Does this work with all the change they have in New York?
Yeah, I think so. Long term is a different story. I think this year, provided they keep some of their pieces healthy up front, they are loaded with skill talent. He seems to be, pretty refreshed and engaged. So, I don't know what that looks like a year from now, 2 years from now, but I feel like in the short term, I do think it'll work. He's still, if you get 60% of a traditional Aaron Rodgers, it's really kind of all the Jets need with what they have in place.
Yeah, and the big thing is he doesn't turn the ball over, right?
Yeah.
He turned over a little bit more last year than he normally does, but generally not a turnover guy. And, yeah, do you want some of the spectacular? Sure. But if you just don't turn it over, they seem to have enough around where they can be really, you would think, really successful.
They've got six legit defensive end pass rushers, 6 of them. They have a very talented roster. So they just need him to be, steady and solid and a veteran presence. They don't need him to be the traditional Aaron Rodgers.
And if they can get a lead, obviously those guys can pin their ears back and get after him. Daniel Jeremiah, live from Chargers camp in beautiful Costa Mesa, California. Padres playing a little better.
Yeah, but they can't get – Doug, they still haven't won 4 games in a row yet this year. It's inconceivable that they have not been able to string it together. But they like to win 14-2 one day and lose 2-1 the next. That's kind of who they are this year.
You know who won 4 games in a row last week was the Angels.
Really?
Yeah, they've actually won, I think, 6 out of 7. So trying to figure out
you,
today's
by the way,
postponed.
You have a platform. Will you please remind Jay Stu and all the Dodger fans that there's a 0% chance that the Angels would ever trade Shohei Ohtani to the Dodgers?
I don't want to say 0. I don't want to say 0%. Like, look, if it's the best deal and you charge them a little Dodgers tax, I don't think it's crazy. I wouldn't want to do it, but if they're like they have the best farm system, they want to come up off the best players, by all means.
Yeah, no,
I don't want to trade him. I want Trout to come back and then to make a move and get into the playoffs. I just don't think that's a likely scenario.
Yeah, no, I would I'd be rooting for him, but I don't think they end up moving him. I think they just enjoy the turnout for the rest of the year and hope that they get in.
That's crazy. That is crazy, but may well happen. Daniel Jeremiah, he talks football, he talks baseball, occasionally some hoops as well. Thanks for joining us, man.